Welcome to the CoinSec podcast. On this week's episode, we discuss attacks targeting Equihash mining pools, the Route53 BGP Hijack, a new smart contract vulnerability called BatchOverflow, and we're joined by special guest Troy Mursch AKA Bad Packets. All that and more on episode number 15 of the CoinSec podcast.
You want to secure your assets.
We can crack the wallet.
Oh, we've done it before.
We've got rigs, character adversary, attribution mode.
With our private keys combined.
Building some kind of blockchain super weapon.
There's just a number of vulnerabilities that are in the smart contracts.
Math. It's probably secure.
They all secretly mine cryptocurrency.
What coin can I trust? Which one is cryptographically secure?
Don't roll your own crypto. CoinSec podcast.
The CoinSec podcast is a podcast about cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies with a focus on securing them. Don't let the hum of our dual-purpose crypto miner / password crackers in the background disrupt your listening pleasure. During this episode, I was stuck in an airport with lots of background noise, so I let Steve Borosh kind of take the helm on this episode, and he did an amazing job. So definitely have fun listening to Steve kind of MC this whole thing. So take it away, Steve.
All right, this week we're going to change things up a little bit because Bo is currently in an airport somewhere in the world. Where in the world is Bo Bullock? Hey, Bo, where are you at? How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I had to keep it muted during the TSA announcement that was just happening. So sorry about that. I am currently coming to you live from LAX. And, sitting in a terminal, just ready to talk about cryptocurrencies. So don't mind me if I mute every once in a while or if you hear some TSA announcements in the background.
All right. Mike, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. I'm doing all right. It's a late night. I'm ready for the day to be over, but it's going pretty good.
Sweet. Ralph, you're here with us today?
I am here with you guys today. Super excited to be here. And Steve, how are you? Are you excited to be here?
I am fantastic, and I have been bestowed the honor of emceeing this episode, so hopefully I don't screw it up too much. But we do have a very special guest. Troy Mursch is joining us, also known as Bad Packets on Twitter. He's a security researcher and creator and founder of the Bad Packets Report. How's it going, Troy? Welcome.
Hey there. Thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we're going to get right into the grilling of you. Some interview questions here for you. Nothing too scary, but if you would, let's go ahead and just give us a little bit of background on yourself and what interests you in the cryptocurrency or blockchain space. Basically, what brings you here today?
So, as you mentioned, I'm a security researcher. I primarily focus on a couple of areas. The most exciting one currently is cryptojacking, which I'm sure we'll love to be talking about. Yeah. I also track botnets, specifically Mirai-like botnets. And I also look into some other network abuse topics that I'd be more than happy to discuss, but definitely here today to share my thoughts on cryptojacking.
Very cool, very cool. We have definitely broached that subject quite a lot in this.
Seems like every episode.
It seems like almost every episode. It's like, oh man, another one. But you know what? Each one brings its own interesting aspects. Do you have any specific ones that come to mind that you really might want to talk about?
Well, luckily I've been tracking pretty much every major cryptojacking incident, since the word was basically invented in September of last year. The one I always like to speak of as kind of the most notable one for me that kind of got the party started was the official website of Showtime Networks was allegedly compromised for an entire weekend in September as someone had placed Coinhive into the source code, allegedly through an analytics tool. And due to that, anyone that went to that website, the official Showtime Network streaming site, they became a cryptocurrency miner. So I definitely like to give a shout out to that one. That one got the ball rolling for me. But since then, there's always some story popping up of this website, and there's been PolitiFact, there's been even YouTube advertisements. So definitely a lot of content there is where we're seeing Coinhive especially.
Do you have any idea of, like, with the Showtime Coinhive brought in. I mean, that's kind of interesting because, I mean, if you're going there to kind of stream movies or to stream whatever Showtime streams, it seems like people would be like literally staring at their screen for a really long time. I can imagine a lot of mining being done. Was there like any numbers on what was gained from that?
It's actually a really good question. The information of how much Monero, which I should have pointed out earlier, is Coinhive mines cryptocurrency Monero, which I'm sure a lot of people are aware of at this point. They actually released some statistics once I asked them on Twitter. You know, good old Twitter. They finally created an account, and I asked them in the Showtime case. They said it mined about 0.3 Monero, which my notes here, which are sadly obsolete, that was about $90 when I took these notes. The current price, we'd have to run it through there. So to answer your question, they honestly didn't mine very much.
So what you're saying is it's really not worth CFAA violations to put Coinhive on a high traffic site?
In my opinion, absolutely not.
Sounds like it was a big attempt, but I mean, it's a lot of work too. I mean, like, you know, setting that up, I mean, you know, besides like a jackpot, I mean, it's not necessarily an easy setup to do. For $90, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, it's definitely not very lucrative. Honestly, some of these cases just appear to be more of a defacement of the site. Basically, hey, I was here, owned your stuff, and, you know, I dropped in a cryptocurrency miner. It doesn't seem very lucrative, you know, for that profit margin there. Definitely not.
So you mentioned an analytics. Was it like a plugin? Is that common that you see basically sites getting something from a third party infecting them?
In the case of Showtime, and the reason I said allegedly was I wasn't trying to be facetious there, is actually Showtime did not make any statement when I shared the story with the Wall Street Journal. They didn't talk to the Wall Street Journal and subsequently anyone else on the topic. But, you know, we presume they didn't intentionally place a cryptocurrency miner on their website. But in the case of the analytics tool, that was actually New Relic, and they did release a statement and said, you know, hey, we were not compromised. We didn't place this code. However, when you do an analysis of Showtime's website, when it was affected, the Coinhive script very clearly appeared within the New Relic code block because it was, you know, very clearly commented when their code block started and stopped. So that's presumably how it got in there.
Interesting. So, yeah, that kind of brings up a point with the, you know, software development and these, you know, websites putting stuff on there. You know, you really don't check the other person's code, I guess, and stuff can get slipped in there. And we see that kind of like the supply chain attacks type deal. So.
Well, yeah, and you get the similar problem. I mean, I haven't seen it necessarily with WordPress, but like with WordPress plugins, I mean, it's that anybody could put code into the plugin repository, and a lot of it was used for like backlink generating and kind of trying to get search engine optimization from like the Black Hat side. But I mean, it would be trivial to drop something like that in there, and nobody's looking at the code before they install these plugins. I mean, I guess this is the same for pretty much any of the CMSs, but yeah, it's still a huge problem.
We saw something similar to that with the AWS buckets and the AOL ads. Those few weeks back, where they compromised the AWS bucket, changed the AOL ad, and it was being served up on MSN.
Yeah, open S3 buckets is another common trend that I observed because, again, we're still speaking of, you know, just good old JavaScript. And like you said, no one's verifying that. Third-party JavaScript, yeah, sure, sounds good. Drop it in there. And in one case, I found the LA Times, it was actually their homicide report website, had an open S3 bucket. And sure enough, Coinhive showed up in there. But again, like these are more of like defacement incidents, as I would call them. Like, again, they're not mining that much cryptocurrency and they're not making that much money doing this. It's more of saying, hey, we're here, and anybody comes to your website, we triggered their AV and people start freaking out, but we're not really making much money off of it.
I mean, do you think that, you know, these kind of attacks are from like a more skilled attacker or from a less skilled attacker, more just kind of like, hey, we can do this? I mean, I don't know if that's, you know, what you've seen I mean, you've probably done a bit more research than I, obviously.
To answer that question, I don't want to insult any hackers out there that may be listening, but in some of these cases, it's just simply copy paste in a couple lines of Coinhive's JavaScript and away you go. Yeah. But there's been far more advanced cases, or relatively far more advanced cases. One of the WordPress cryptojacking campaigns that I tracked for probably a couple months until Brian Krebs got tired of me tweeting about it and did his Coinhive investigation was, in that cases, the code was fully obfuscated. Like, you look at it as a human, like, it's a bunch of gibberish. And in some cases, honestly, the obfuscation was, quote, beyond my pay grade. I can't sit there and run through, like, I couldn't figure it out. I, of course, awesome Twitter followers, hey, can you help me with this? Sure. Finally can unmask the code and, see how they did it. So to answer your question, it's a varying degree depending on how you want to inject that JavaScript. You want to do the copy paste method? Hey, it works, but it's easy to spot. Or do you want to spend a little more time hiding it or obfuscating it to make it harder to detect?
Cool. So we talked a lot about Coinhive. What are your thoughts on usage of Coinhive? Are there legit use cases, or is it basically all bad? I mean, I've seen on the Twitter sphere everything from it's burning your resources, you don't know what it's doing to your CPU, to hey, as long as you accept the, what if a website puts a EULA or something on there, it's up to you. What do you think about it?
It's a good question. I mean, most people are going to assume I'm inherently biased, since I've been tweeting about this for 6 months, this and that. But there is legitimate use cases of in-browser cryptocurrency mining. And, honestly, I say, hey, it's great in theory, but let's take a look. What has been done in practice? It's been used maliciously. It's been used surreptitiously. Whatever adjective you want to throw in there, it's not good. It hasn't been used in an honest, upfront way. However, with that being said, Coinhive, they did roll out their auth-mined JavaScript library, and that does require explicit user consent, but it wasn't widely adopted because, again, it's kind of this gold rush, hard and fast mentality, like just inject that JavaScript, get it, go get that money. Let's not, take an honest approach and say, hey, in exchange for a few computing cycles, we'll give you access to premium content, or, sky's the limit on how you want to monetize with it. But it was a very dishonest approach and, subsequently rampantly abused. That I don't know, the whole monetization model of itself, the reputation, I don't know if it will recover. Hopefully it does. And at some point, there can be a more honest and upfront service about it, and also something that can be profitable for the website owner. Because in some of these cases, I've seen, I can speak to how much I've mined myself in my research, they're not making a lot of money, especially now as the mining difficulty of Monero has gone up. And to me, I don't know, there's going to have to be a new model of an honest and, inform the user, educate them first if this is going to work as a viable monetization method.
I mean, so do you think?
Good point.
Do you think that Coinhive, or another company that comes out? I mean, do you think that we can see like a honest monetization model, or do you think that kind of mining as a monetization model might not be the best way? I mean, I know that's kind of open-ended, but I guess I just wanted to hear your opinion on it.
Well, one thing to note as well, I mean, Monero, and I've ran a couple of non-scientific polls on Twitter, of course, of like, well, why do you think the difficulty of mining Monero has gone up? And, some people, it's botnets. It's botnets doing it, which is not actually a lie. We haven't spoken about botnets yet. Or no, it's ASICs. It's those secret hidden ASICs we don't know about. Or, hey, it's Coinhive. They're doing it. So there's a lot of finger pointing in that realm. But as for a legitimate model, using this as a monetization method, mining Monero, I don't know. The future to me is not bright mining Monero with this model due to those factors. However, there's, and you guys are well aware more than I am, there's literally hundreds of other types of cryptocurrency, and specifically ones that could be mined with the Kryptonite algorithm. Again, I'm not an expert in how the algorithm works, but there's other options. And I will say I have spoken to other organizations similar to Coinhive that want to take the honest approach, but they kind of just don't want to get in the game now because of the negative reputation that Coinhive has given to this.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Awesome.
Right. So you spoke a little bit about cryptojacking and how it's kind of spreading from different types of sites and stuff like that. Do you think it's going to get worse or better as awareness spreads around, or do you think this is just the beginning of the tip of the spear, so to speak?
In regards to cryptojacking and the trends, of malicious or illicit crypto mining, I definitely think it's going to be trending downward. Most of the AVs and anti-malware companies now block it. There's obviously always, user, awareness of what it is and what's doing. That's always gaining each day. People, okay, I know what this is now. But as a whole, I see it declining again until maybe some other gold rush with another cryptocurrency comes up, or someone is able to present a more legitimate and honest business model and say, hey, we're going to do it this way, and then people are on board with it. And then in turn, everybody, either gets, money as a website operator or as a content consumer, I get my content quote for free because you use my CPU. But long story short on that, I do see the trend declining.
Interesting. So
I have a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Troy, in terms of organizational mindsets, what are you seeing or what do you think organizations feel about getting infected with cryptojacking versus ransomware?
Well, I think it's definitely a concern. People want to say, cryptojacking is the new ransomware. It's not. But with that being said, it's something as an organization or a managed service provider enterprise that you have to be aware of, because anybody that comes in and uses your equipment, they're basically stealing your energy of your electricity, stealing your computing cycles. That's going to cost on your bottom line. It's going to be reflected there, and you're going to pay for it as an organization. So it definitely is a threat that you need to be aware of, but it doesn't mean it's more of a threat than ransomware or data breaches or any other of these security topics. It's just something that you need to be aware it's here to stay, and it's something you need to be mindful and protected against if you can.
Right. Other than the antivirus being updated and stuff like that, are there any other ways you think that organizations could protect from cryptojacking?
One of the first methods I recommend, and only because the antivirus companies weren't really taking action, they were kind of slow to drag their feet because, initially, yes, we all wanted Coinhive to be legitimate and, be able to use this new monetization method, but, quickly in practice, like I said, I saw this isn't going to work. So the method I recommend to block it, and I still do, is block it at the network level. Stop it at your firewall. We have a pretty solid block list, the coin blocker list. I frequently like to give them a shout out on Twitter. It's got a solid list of known crypto mining, cryptojacking domains. If you want to pop that into your IP tables, your Pi-hole, whatever, that is an effective method. It's not foolproof, but that'll stop it at the network level and prevent a lot of that malicious crypto mining.
Great. So you mentioned a little bit about you dabbling in mining and doing some research. What do you do on the mining side, or do you do any trading as well?
So I don't do any cryptocurrency trading. However, with my research and investigations of Coinhive cryptojacking incidents, taking a live look at my wallet right now, I have mined the equivalent of 7 cents. Full disclosure.
Very nice.
Is that Monero?
Yes, that is Monero.
Okay.
To the moon, baby. To the moon. Yeah, like you said, it's getting tougher. And well, I think that's why all these other, forks come out and stuff like that. It gives, we've seen campaigns mining electronium. I think we talk about one later for a new I forget which one, bit something, that people are mining because it's another kryptonite algorithm, and most people are, if you're not aware, it's easily mineable on your CPU, unless you get to the level of where Monero is, and the difficulty's up really high. There's, literally, 100,000 or so miners out there on the network, and it's harder to mine. So sure, yeah, everything's getting a little more difficult, but that brings up a good point. So if everything is getting more difficult to mine, and mining supports the network, then what happens to the network when there aren't any miners because it's not profitable anymore?
Difficulty drops.
It auto drops. Sure. Yeah. So it has to, right? Or otherwise, there's no way to support the blockchain. So let's go to the next question, which is, what do you think is the biggest problem in terms of security for the cryptocurrency ecosystem as a whole?
As a whole, well, there's quite a bit of topics. We had a really good recent example, the BGP hijack of the AWS DNS servers used by myetherwallet.com, and that was a pretty high stakes. I know they didn't make out with millions of dollars in that case, but that was a pretty high stakes operation there to redirect users from their website, in effort to steal private keys or access people's wallets. And I can see, that is a great illustrative example for, any cryptocurrency wallet provider, or network operator. Issues like that as you cross over into the realm of, network security. And it's just something that you have to be aware of, as an operator of those type of services. You have to have visibility in incidents like that. I mean, of course, there's nothing you could do about it. And like a BGP hijack's pretty crazy in my opinion, but they pulled it off. So I think that's just one of great recent examples. I mean, it's unfortunate for MyEtherWallet. I've actually tracked their service for a while in regards to phishing sites. And in one case, I think I found over 30 unique phishing sites targeting their service. So unfortunately, they've been a constant target for many months now, and the recent events is just really unfortunate for them.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy on the BGP. I mean, we've seen that a lot, right? We've seen the BGP hijacking for a really long time. This is probably one of the first times that I've seen it to actually be able to get at the DNS, to redirect DNS, which was kind of interesting, that combination between the two, and then just how it's actually affecting cryptocurrency in general, and being able to be able to do that and hijack the MyEtherWallet site and to steal. I think they walked away with like $10,000 worth of Ether, I think is what it was. But
I mean, that wallet has been known to carry something like 20 million or something like that. So I think the one they were sending stuff to. So yeah, it seems like whoever's been doing it has been, using their wallets or whatever for other malicious purposes. But it's interesting that, such a high profile attack, they didn't notice it until it was over after about a 2-hour window. And wouldn't you think there might be other attacks you could do if you could hijack an entire, BGP network?
I was going to say, this is like systemic. Like, let's take it back. Like, let's not just look at MyEtherWallet, right? This has nothing to do with just that site, right? Mm-hmm. This has to do with the entire internet. Like any website you could have done this to, right? We have two major flaws here. I mean, like the BGP hijacking, which has been known about, including that we have DNS. Without DNSSEC and all the other things, I mean, we can just fake that as well. So it's not just MyEtherWallet. We're talking about any website, right? Which I thought was interesting because they didn't actually come up with they didn't take the 5 minutes to get a Let's Encrypt cert for their SSL for MyEtherWallet. Either way, right? Side note. But yeah, insert any major website and say I could hijack that for however many hours it was. So I mean, this is much bigger. Honestly, that vulnerability is much bigger than just cryptocurrencies. But I do think it's interesting that that's what they chose to take down for.
Yeah, well, so I looked into it a little bit. I think I chatted about it with you guys kind of offline. Just looking at it from that, you made a comment earlier about the amount of ether that was in that wallet, and taking the Ethereum address and doing a little bit of OSINT with it, you actually start identifying other wallet scam sites, like the Reddit. There was a Reddit thread where that same Ethereum address was used for some other scams. There was a Bitcoin Talk scam thread where they were trying to out this guy or this person. And I say this guy because within that Bitcoin thread, it was really interesting that there was a coin that was ICOing called BitSequence. And I guess they were giving a bounty for referrals of some sort. But in order to be verified for the BitSequence bounty, you had to have a verified account. And it was the thing that caught my attention was BitSequence provided the Excel spreadsheet of everybody that was verified and had received funds. And it showed their Facebook profile or their social network profile, and then the Ethereum address that they received their bounty from, and that address was in that spreadsheet when I was looking through it, and it had a Facebook profile. Now I don't necessarily know if this Facebook profile just so happened to be hacked and they just so happened to use it in order to verify it, but when I started digging on the guy's name, he was a cryptocurrency fanatic and all through and through. So really interesting to see just the scams, the amount of coin that was in the wallet, and then on top of all of that same address being reported over and over and over. Clearly, probably not on the attacker side, probably more on the scamming side that ventured or hooked up with somebody that understands BGP routing. I mean, it's not terribly difficult to do BGP hijacks, but it does take a level of understanding with networks to be able to broadcast or to advertise BGP routes smaller than whoever you're attacking, like the smaller CIDR blocks. So I mean,
yeah, you have to be able to handle all that traffic and everything, right?
Yeah,
that does come to you.
Yeah, you have to be able to spin it up. I mean, but that part is probably the easier part because you could just what they did was just do it at a data center. I mean, obviously it can overwhelm it, which might be why they were trying to focus on the DNS and just focusing on the traffic that would come from Route 53, which we know as DNS. So they're probably limiting the type of a traffic. But I mean, that's still, that number of UDP requests that are going to be going for different hosts, I mean, it's crazy.
I wonder if they spent more money just setting up the infrastructure than they made off the attack.
Pull it down, pull it down.
That can't be free. That can't be free. Like, nobody's like, oh yeah, no problem, we're gonna let you do this. And then like nobody was like, oh well, our data center got completely hacked so that we could, compromise.
You spent 20 grand trying to get the friggin' server in the data center up so they could. All right, we took a loss. Pulled the site down 2 hours later.
Oh, jeez. Lessons learned, man. Lessons learned. Interesting, though.
Troy, do you do any bug bounties or anything like that? Any cryptocurrency challenges or anything? Did you win the Monte Crypto little hack tournament there on that game, or do you have any interest in that kind of space?
I wish that I say that I would have an interest, but unfortunately I did not win any bug bounties. That's not really an area that I focus on at this time. But I do know that obviously everybody loves financial incentives, myself included. So at this time, no, I currently don't, but in the future I may.
Sure. Current favorite coins, is there anything that you like as far as how the technology is advancing for a coin, or just what it does that interests you, or anything like that?
Well, as I said, I'm not an investor, so I'd love to give a shout out to my favorite coin, but I do think Monero deserves some shout out. I mean, not just because it's been used, in these illicit crypto mining operations, but how it's designed with the obfuscated blockchain. It's very, privacy centric. I mean, obviously for better or worse, depending on how you're using it. So in that case, I'll just give a little love to Monero. But again, if you're going to mine it, try to be honest about it, and don't be cryptojacking.
And that doesn't have anything to do with your massive 7-cent investment. Right?
I know.
Yeah, no influence there whatsoever.
You might turn that into $1 at this point. I don't know. We're gonna, hold on.
I'm gonna hold on to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, hold.
So that's a funny thing. Everybody talks about holding on to currencies, but when the $2 bill was around, it seems like everybody was like holding on to that as well, and then it went out of circulation because nobody was freaking using it. So does that kind of same mentality work for cryptocurrencies as well? Or is that why the price is dropping? Because everybody's just holding on to their crap and it's like, well, I'm not going to use this. Or is it just because there's no real method to use these things right now?
I think I don't know, probably the transactions not being there and not a lot of people taking it right now. I mean, at the end of the day, $2 is still worth $2.
Right.
So even holding it may or may not, decrease it. At least I wouldn't think. But not being able to use it probably turns people off a little bit more.
Yeah, it's really the deciding factor. Sure. So what do you think, Troy, is more impactful to society, cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology itself?
Ooh, good question. I'm just going to say the B word, blockchain. I think certain applications of the blockchain, might be relevant outside of cryptocurrency, but, the bottom line is money drives the world around. And the current application, the most well-known blockchain is through cryptocurrency, of course, the king of it all. And so to answer your question, I think it's going to be in practice, and unfortunately in the real world, I think it's going to stick with its claim to fame with cryptocurrency. However, with that being said, and I know it turns into a marketing pitch, blockchain. I think there's uses outside of it that can be relevant and provide value. But what's going to make the most monetary value is it's going to be with cryptocurrency.
Very cool. So do you believe that mining is necessarily evil, or is it even evil at all? I mean, people, talk about how much power and consumption and everything mining is doing, or is it just something we're all going to have to deal with?
Well, it's a good point off because the energy usage, of course, you've all seen the Bitcoin farms and how much energy they draw, and any other cryptocurrency, obviously proof of work, you got to put in the work, and that takes energy. And it kind of goes back to the whole topic of cryptojacking and why it was even lucrative, or still is today to some extent, is you're using someone else's resources. You're using someone else's electricity. That particular use of it, sure, you can call it evil. It's malicious. It's criminal. But, if you're a miner at home, you have your mining rig, or you have, your mining pool that, you share the load with your friends and everybody dumps their hashes into, like, that's not particularly evil. Yes, the energy usage, if there's a certain point that, you're using more energy than it takes to mine the cryptocurrency, obviously you're not going to do it anymore. It's not profitable. You're not going to let it sit there and run, and you're going to pay your electricity bill and, take a negative profit. That doesn't work. So being inherently evil, of course not. No, but in the case of cryptojacking, malicious criminal use, don't do it.
Right.
I would say also depends on the perspective of the person that you're asking on whether it's evil. I would say gamers would probably say, yeah, it's totally evil.
Yeah,
that's because they can afford the cards.
Cue Ralph in the cards. Yeah, Ralph is on a hate miners streak because he wants some cars to do some video overlays and his gaming and stuff like that. Man, hey, you know what I used to game on? A P90.
Oh, I want to mine too. Okay? Why can't I mine? All right, just because I don't want to set up an international operation that takes some whole county's like extra energy that they have from some co-op that makes it cheap and ruin their whole town. Just I don't want to do that. Why can't I have an inexpensive card?
That's funny.
All right, Troy. So the last and most important question of the evening, in one sentence, who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
Oh man, the question. That is the final question. Well, in one sentence, I will
More or less.
I don't know.
I think that's the running answer.
I think if you asked Satoshi, he would say we all are Satoshi.
Yeah, we're all Mr. Nakamoto.
like Negan on The Walking Dead. Like we're all Negan, so we're all Satoshi.
Yeah, I was reading some forums of his original emails, and I read that he said that somewhere. So I thought that was really interesting. Or either he said that or somebody else from the original developers of like Bitcoin Core. It was kind of funny.
I don't know. It's got to be John McAfee. It's got to be John.
Oh, wow, that's a close runner-up for sure.
I saw him. He signed the public key. It's true. It's him.
All right. All right. Well, we're doing good on time. We've got time to go over the state of the market and into our weekly news. So, current state of the market. It is April 26, 2018. Overall market cap today is 414 billion and counting, which is up from last week, which was at approximately 365 billion. So we're on a steady incline over the week, and Bitcoin's up almost a K. Ethereum's rising. Ripple's going up. So everything's kind of moving up this week. I think we said that like a week ago, and then everything crashed again.
Man, it's a roller coaster. I mean, I'm rich again. I'm poor again. I don't know what I am going to do again.
How are you going to build that pool if the market doesn't recover fully?
Yeah, that you sell them early and then just hold on for the rest. But well, my wife was actually asking me this earlier. She's like, I don't understand the market. It's just going up and down. Don't you have insight into this? I'm just like throwing my hands up in the air. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Why are you asking me? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. That's right. Yeah, so we talk frequently about how people put market indicators and stuff on these things, and that it's just, I don't know, on a whim things just go up. Like right now, Bitcoin Diamond is up 64%.
What is Bitcoin Diamond? Please.
Exactly. Come on.
Please. I cloned another coin from another coin and airdropped a bunch of coins, and guess what? It's a diamond. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, but all the forks are such a huge market for those who are creating like malicious wallets that just steal the original Bitcoin from people who basically just copy their private keys in, expecting to get the forks coin.
Kind of like the old back in the Juarez days where you'd get that whole cracker, and that was just really a C2 onto your box.
I got a free game, yo. I didn't pay for it.
Right. All right. Enough about money and cryptocurrencies. Let's talk about news and security news along with it. So this week we had some pretty interesting stuff. The first one we want to talk about is the attacks targeting Equihash pools. So security staff at 360 Core Security found that mining pools using specific Node.js verifier to verify miner shares suffered from a logic vulnerability. An attacker targeting those pools that use this, again, another third-party library, could feasibly provide a solution that the verifier would then validate any block header. So I think this is kind of a new attack. I don't know. Have you seen anything like this, Troy?
In that particular case, unfortunately, it's not my realm of expertise, so I'm going to have to say no.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like this either. It's a little bit different. I mean, logic vulnerabilities are one thing, but on the verification process of it, it seems to be pretty new.
Yeah, I mean, so this is faking computational power, right, to try to get your unfair share of the pool, right?
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is almost similar to like changing the timestamp, I guess. But in this case, you're changing, you're providing a solution that the verifier basically just says, "Hey, that looks good to me," and validate whatever you submit to it. So you probably could mine at a crazy rate.
Yeah,
difficulty.
So Steve, on the pool side of things, like that is, how does that look? 'Cause I know you set up Deadpool, the mining pools. So is there a piece of software that's different from your typical client-side miner that you have to run? Is that where this vulnerability is? Is it in like the server side?
Yeah, so it's definitely in the server side because we use these things called block unlockers, and basically it when you submit a hash, it validates and that everything's copacetic and it unlocks it. But in this case, they were using a specific third-party Node.js verifier, and so the pools that we have at Deadpool, they're all built into the core. That doesn't mean there couldn't be something foreseeable down the future that somebody didn't overlook or whatever. But yeah, so that just kind of shows that having third-party stuff on your servers, if you're not really looking into it and seeing how things are operating, you could be susceptible to something like this. So I think most of the pools that were susceptible switched from this to another library, straight from the core that they knew would be good. So why you would start off with another third-party library, I don't know, but that's, I guess, the way some did.
It's probably easier to implement, that's why.
Sure, yeah, plug and play type deal.
Sure.
So the other one, I think I actually posted this one in the chat a while ago, was an advanced, well, quote unquote, advanced mining campaign that utilizes Windows drivers for its C2. So you could have, command and control. You can upload and download files. You could make changes to the infrastructure. But most importantly, they were using it to mine. In this case, security researchers at Talos Security identified a new mining campaign, mostly around Southwest Asia. I think it was like Vietnam and places like that, tied to a new Bitcoin fork called BitVote. So the reason I think they targeted BitVote is because since it's new, there isn't that high difficulty and it's easier to mine. And BitVote, don't ask me how, if it's a Bitcoin fork, is actually using the Kryptonite algorithm. So it's a juicy target. It's brand new. It's using Kryptonite. It can be easily mined with the CPU. But the problem is that the kernel mode driver that they used was signed, but it was signed with an out-of-date signature. So most newer systems won't even run it. So were they smart in A, targeting older systems that may not have antivirus and stuff like that, or B, did they have an oversight, and deploy their agents with an out-of-date certificate that is then basically caught and blocked, and their whole campaign's burned? I don't know.
Did they make the coin too? I feel like they made the coin as well. Like, the whole
Oh man, I never even thought about that. What if somebody did that? Fork the coin, mine it themselves, do their own crypto campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you're not pre-mining. You're like self-mining with other people's hardware, like right in the beginning. So like you get a ton of coins out. I mean, this is like the ultimate pump and dump scheme right here, man. I mean, perfect. I don't know.
I think it's a good shout out to the Kryptonite algorithm. Again, your CPU centric algorithm. Honestly, I'm not familiar with BitVote. I guess that's brand new or made up. But in either case, it's just another use case. Unfortunately, not a good one of the Kryptonite algorithm. And to answer your question, if they were smart, I mean, based on the report here that I'm looking at, it was in some countries maybe that'll have typically old infrastructure, perhaps even still running Windows XP in some cases.
Right.
So maybe they were smart and/or.
Now, how much money did they make? That's how I know if they're smart or not. We need to
let's get that bit vote conversion rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is that even on an exchange yet? I don't think I've seen it.
No, that's the pump and dump game. Okay, they're gonna start an exchange as well.
They earned 4,400 bit votes.
Woo.
Woohoo!
Now I got to find out how much a Bitvote's worth.
It says they earned about $1,500.
I mean, you know,
Is that worth prison time? You know.
Yeah, but there might have been an oversight in the certificate, especially if it recently expired. Like, I didn't see any dates on the expiration, but if they were expecting to get a lot more code execution and it was blocked because it wasn't signed by a still non-expired certificate, I could see that being like a curveball that they didn't prepare for. I mean, looking at the dropper and stuff that they were using, I mean, using a GIF file and Zoring the decryption key and extracting URL out of the body and stuff. That's pretty cool stuff. I mean, those are. I mean, I guess you see them a lot in droppers, but it's still not like super old. So
right, yeah, you would think like if they went that far, they would have not had that oversight, or they would have, done a little more. Like corporate espionage or something like that.
One job.
You had one job.
I don't know. I mean, so Troy kind of brought this up that he thought that crypto mining or cryptojacking was actually going to start going down. And every time I hear how much these guys made, I'm like, yeah, there's no way. This is like unsustainable as like a way to make a bunch of money. It just seems like everyone's not making enough,
Or are these just the ones that we're seeing because they got caught?
Maybe. True. I mean, I'm probably crypto mining right now. I don't even know it. God damn
it. Yeah, I think some of it is you hear some of the larger cases that we haven't really spoken of previously in the show is one of them that made about $3 million. I mean, I hate giving the US dollar equivalent because it's out of date as soon as you say it, but the botnet roughly made about $3 million. So you see and you read about these stories like, oh, wow, I want to that action. I want some of that cash for myself, and the way that you have to go through this, and then the stumbles like the driver that's not signed properly. Like, why did you go through all this effort to do it? Like, what is your return on investment on this? Because I don't think you're making a lot of money.
It just makes me think of like weirdly enough like Powerball, other like lottery tickets. Like, oh, someone else won. I probably have a chance, right? I mean, like, I know it's like not even a fair comparison, but just this kind of like ideal, like, oh, well, other people are doing it. I mean, this has got to be the way to make money, right? Insert whatever kind of scheme you have. So I don't know. A couple people did great, and a lot of other people probably aren't going to do so great. So interesting.
All right, so our next one on the list was the Route53 BGP hijack. We covered that. So let's go into the really big news this week was the new smart contract vulnerability, BatchOverflow. So on Sunday, 22 April, a group called PeckShield detected two transfers of 2,255 and let's see here. Oops, sorry, my computer just went wonky.
Your crypto mining.
So they detected this transfer in BEC tokens called Beauty Chain.
Those are good.
And apparently, what they found was that if you're working in Celerity, which has 256-bit integers, you get an overflow with what they saw, and the counter cycles back around to 0. So that's where it came up with the overflow, because it's in the batch function. Mike, I'm sure you've done some research on this. You got any insight into how this went down?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So the batch transfer is an ERC20 contract that allows you to pass in a list of receivers and a value amount, and it basically will deduct from the sender's wallet, or from the sender, the amount that's passed in, and it'll pass that same amount to all of the people that are in the recipients, right? So if I passed in like 2 recipients, for instance, and I said I'm going to give them 1,000, the vulnerability lies in that it takes the length of the recipients, which in this case would be 2, and it multiplies it by the amount, which was 1,000, so 2,000, and it increases it, and then it sets the amount, right? So now you have this amount variable. Well, what happened was, because that amount was being passed in was a signed integer, and yeah, you do have your unsigned amount. What tends to happen is you're multiplying it. So if you have a really big value amount and you're passing in like a higher count, you could actually wrap it, because after a certain point that integer wraps back to 0. So you're overflowing the integer, and then it wraps back around to 0. Similar to how we've talked about this before with the underflows. But if you do that with the amount, and what it does is it sets the multiplication will result in a 0 on the amount, which is actually a really good thing. It sounds bad, but it actually needs to be that way so that it could pass through the verification processes of requiring the value. And then there's some other things. But what ends up happening is then it goes into this for loop. And so for each of the recipients, it actually adds that value back to them. And so that's kind of where the problem lies, in that they wrap it to 0, and then they make some really, really large transfers to the recipient, which in this case is going to be them, or their smart contract or whatever they're using in order to transfer the funds. So it's just really an interesting one. But I think the big takeaway from this is that even though it's still a normal bug, in that the vulnerability is it's a integer overflow, so to speak. It's in this batch function, which is used by multiple ERC20 contracts, and so that was the interesting thing, because like we see these contracts and we look at the code, and this guy, I forget what his name was. He was on Twitter, and he actually posted the article. I think he was the one that posted the article, but anyway, he asked a question about. He posted a screenshot of the code and was like, "Well, what are we missing? Like, what line of code here would have fixed this?"
Yeah, it was Brandon Arvanagi.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, I mean, I answered it and kind of gave some insight into like another solution that they could have had, but just really cool to see. I mean, it's bad, but it's cool to see. Just a lot more adoption on the security side of things. And maybe it's just my echo chambers getting a little bit bigger on Twitter. But to see people talking about this kind of stuff is cool.
I'm really curious what the beauty chain is now. That's really thrown me for a loop here. I don't even know what it does.
Yeah, well, all news is good news, right? So, would be interesting to see how things like this affect the prices of these things. But from what I was reading,
I was going to ask, is that like a coin killer, like a token killer kind of vulnerability? Like, does that make those
does that
contracts
kill your token?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't.
Well, Beauty Coin's not listed on Coin Market Cap, so who knows?
Maybe they were. Maybe they're gone now.
Yeah, right. Hey, John.
It does bring up an interesting point in the article, though, or one of the articles, where it was talking about somebody that has that much of a specific token, that if these other ones are actually traded on an exchange and you're able to trick a smart contract into getting that much, you could effectively disrupt other markets by being able to trade it with other coins. So that was an interesting. It does pose a problem there, I think. That will be interesting to see in the future.
I also saw pretty much that this, one of the issues was that, this is kind of a copycat based type deal, right? Everyone's so quick to get on market that, there was a lot of other people who had smart contracts that were susceptible to the same attack vector, mainly just because they saw someone else do it. And they're like, I just want it to work, as opposed to understanding, how it works. Even if, this wasn't necessarily like a known issue. It's just kind of like, when one issue does come up, everyone's kind of got the same, code, because everyone was just in a rush to make it happen. So,
sure.
that's also something we'll see.
That, and I think there's a limited number of developers that are actually putting these smart contracts together. I mean, I think that a lot of people are trying to do it, but like from an actual corporation organizational perspective, I think the demand is probably up significantly, which kind of forces that reuse.
Yeah, we got to get it done tomorrow. If we want to start our ICO or whatever it may be, as opposed to, and honestly, I'm nitpicking on cryptocurrencies, but I mean, this goes for any kind of organization, right? The faster you get it, especially for startups or anything like that, the faster you get whatever software code or application done, the sooner you can start making money off of it. So security comes last.
That's a fact.
Regretfully.
An unfortunate fact. All right, to the last article of the night. It brings us right about at the hour time. So people talk about data breaches. We see this one, the title as actually a Gizmodo article. It says, John McAfee-backed cryptocurrencies, thousands of investors exposed in data breach. So I don't know if it was an actual breach, but a open Mongo database was found online and by ChromeTech security. So it sounds more like it was found, maybe reported, and then hopefully fixed thereafter. But I don't know if these were lost or whatever, but it's basically an unsecured Mongo database exposing full names, addresses, email addresses, encrypted passwords, wallet information, along with links to scanned passports, driver's license, and other IDs for over 25,000 investors.
So hold on, they were encrypted passwords or they were hash passwords? Sorry,
it says
encrypted. I don't know why. That's nitpicky, but sorry.
Yeah, it's right to be nitpicky. Who knows? So the actual ChromeTech announced on Wednesday that BZOP, B-E-Z-O-P, which offers its own cryptocurrency tokens, was the one that was found to be, open on the internet. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been. They don't say that it's been, all that data's been dumped or anything like that. But they did. BZOP did launch a bounty program in early January. So it sounds like maybe ChromeTech found this and reported it. So, but who knows who accessed it beforehand, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I would assume that's all been compromised. I mean, to err on the side of like.
Oh yeah.
Everyone reset your passwords. We messed up.
Yeah, and your IDs and your passport.
Yeah. Your social, you're gonna need to change that tomorrow. Yeah, about that.
Wonder how many how much spam's getting sent out to those guys.
I don't know. Click this link. We have a new cryptocurrency coming out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where do we get that dump and start? People start phishing people.
Oh yeah, I get the newest, greatest idea. Look, I used all proper English too. You definitely got to click this.
That's why I've been getting all those blockchain emails lately. Damn.
I know.
So, yeah, back in January, McAfee had called it the ICO of the week, Bzop.io, a simple and secure creation of e-commerce sites, except their own. I threw that last bit in there as, a little kick in the face, but whatever.
Zinger.
But he gets paid for his tweets, so I'm sure he had incentive to do that.
That's probably what it was, yeah.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I got paid to say that I like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair.
Right. So, secure your stuff, right? It's open S3 buckets and Mongo databases. What more is out there?
I don't understand though. What kind of application are you running that needs a MongoDB open, publicly?
Well, the problem is people spin up Mongo and it works. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
And like everything else.
Yeah, it's what it is. I guarantee that's what it is. Spin up a Mongo database, you don't have to worry about the auth like not being there, because by default it's not going to make you do that anyway, or at least it didn't before.
So I'm surprised this database lasted that long from January till now, because typically if you spin up a honeypot with a MongoDB,
Yes.
it'll be encrypted and ransomware in like an hour. Like literally. So I'm just curious, did they have it running on some crazy port that somebody didn't know about or something like that? It's just surprising to me that it lasted that long.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically most people are not scanning, every single port and then, checking headers, but, just looking at the default port. So, yeah. Still, though, I agree with you. All
right. Awesome. Well, that was a great episode. We are closing down. We're just past an hour. So I want to say thank you to Troy for coming on. If you want to check him out, he's at bad_packets on Twitter. Or you can check him out on badpackets.net. He's got a fantastic website with all kinds of cool graphs and charts and analytics that he's been doing against, botnets and cryptojacking malware and stuff. So check him out on there. Troy, thanks for coming on.
Hey guys, thanks again. Appreciate you having me on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was good. Bo, hope you have a safe flight back whenever that is.
Thanks, man. Hey, good job.
Thanks. All right, I got boss man to give me a thumbs up. That's awesome.
I'm not the boss. Come on. We're all equals here.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike and Ralph, for coming on. Ralph will be playing some PUBG later, I'm sure. Everybody, please make sure to follow us on Twitter at CoinSec Podcast, and keep an eye out on CoinSecPodcast.com for when Bo does get back and he actually posts this show on there, and we'll be all slicked and ready to go for you. We do have all kinds of ways for you to subscribe to the podcast, so use your favorite app and check us out. And if you like the show, please leave us a review. And have a good night, and keep your crypto safe. Thank you.
See ya.
Hey, guys.